So this is the more practical guide to my XP grading system. At the beginning of each school year, I know right off the bat that during semester one, I'm going to have to hit 4 major standards. I teach American history in South Carolina. There are 8 content standards. Within those, I can break up the skills-based stuff however I want, but I know that in order to do a good job of teaching in the second semester, I need to hit a certain number of things in the first semester. So during that first semester, I'm going to try to get through most of standards 1 through 4. And in the second semester, I'm going to get through the half end of standard 4 through standard 8. And I can break up the assignments into some different pieces based on that. So I usually start off by looking at a chart and creating a chart something like this. I mentioned before that my district requires we have a 50-30-20 split in our category weights. So we're supposed to have major assessments count about 50% of the grade, mid-level assessments are supposed to be weighted at 30%, and practice assessments are supposed to be 20%. And I can go through and break down the assignments into groupings that I know that I want students to accomplish through the semester. And this is how I break out my XP. I know that I want to get about 10. I know that I want students to get to 10,000 XP in order to get a 100 in the class. And they might not get to that 100 in the class. They might only get 8,000 XP, and that's okay. That would be a B, roughly a B. But in order to do this and to meet the district requirements, what I do is break it down into common assessments, which are our district required tests, being worth about 1,000 points. I also have the National History Day project in Standard 1. This varies a little bit different in Semester 2. So we also have our National History Day project. So if we add these together, it's 5,000 experience points in these major assessments. And then in the mid-level assessments, I know that I need students to take some content notes, and I need them to be valued. So I call them collection missions this year. I kind of change the names every once in a while. So in these collection missions, that's sort of like rote stuff. So there's about 500 points in collection mission 1. That means that there's 4 videos that have to be noted. If they complete that and then they summarize it and they do a little product with it at the end, then they're awarded the XP. They also have missions for each unit. So these are missions that are skills-based that they can earn points for. And then there's more History Day stuff kind of tied in here. You can see that I weight the History Day project pretty heavily because there's a lot of effort involved in it, and there's a lot of skills-based stuff, and we'll talk about mastery in just a moment. And then the practice assessments, these are things like review prep, which again, it's a district thing that's required, but I need to give some weight for that. Reflection journals, the students, if they reflect on it and they write some notes to me, they get credit for that. So we do try to focus most of our XP on academic demonstration of mastery or demonstration of at least competency with content and activities that demonstrate skills. This is what my grade book looks like. Now, these are the common assessments. So for a common assessment, they might get an 80% on the test, and I'm going to give them 80% of the 1,000 points. So we put in an 800 here, and you can see here there's test 4, and then this is test common assessment 5, test 5, and so on. And these scores add up to 3,800. Well, not 3,800. I also have an assignment here, which was a creation of a board game. I'll show you why I overvalued that in just a minute. All of this grade book, if you notice here, this is Bill James, just a random name that I pulled. The avatar type that he's selected would be invisibility. This is my template, so this is just me playing here. He is a member of the Hunter Guild. Now I have different blog posts on all of that, but I want to show how that plays into a personalized gradebook. So I take the information from this gradebook and I give it to the students individually, and this takes a little bit of work at the beginning of the year. I have about 90 students or so, so I will make an individualized personal gradebook for each one of the students. There it is. So the way that you do this is through the magic of the import range. So for each student, I will go through at the beginning of the year, and this is a transposed version of this row. So to transpose means it takes it from the horizontal row and just puts it over vertically here. So we have our hunter who's invisible. That's his superpower, Bill James here, and this is his symbol, and you can see this is the card that represents it. Here's the level. Now the level is not based on a strict XP, and the level doesn't mean anything grade-wise for me, but it is important to note that that's there. Again, transposed here, so we can see that he has 3,000 points, and because he's a level 3, this passcode should light up, but it's probably linked on the wrong one. But the way that this works is this code right here, you'll notice in this import range, it will pull that code from, should be this book, should match up here. So you just cut and paste this into that import range formula and it will link them together. And this is pulling everything from student A, I'm sorry, it's pulling everything from row 5. And you'll see here in the import range is pulling everything from row 5. In the grade records, which is the name of that page that we were on here, grade records. Okay, that's some of the technical stuff. And you'll notice that in each one of the ranges, the assignments here, we have our Common Assessment 4. It's worth up to 1,000 points. And if we go back to that grade chart outline I have here, that's 1,000 points. I mentioned before about mastery grading, and sometimes it's called competency grading. Sometimes I might be doing this a little bit differently than mastery grading. But a lot of time that I spend in my classroom is students working individually at their groups, or working collaboratively in groups or individually, and I'm walking around conferencing with students to see where they are, to see what they're working on, and giving them guidance and facilitating whatever content or skill that they're working on. So a lot of my time is not spent up front lecturing like I'm doing here. It's actually working with the students one-on-one or in small groups so that they can demonstrate their skills in content mastery. So when we get to something like the bunker missions, what I call bunker missions here, I have set aside 250 XP for the bunker mission. That doesn't mean that a student will get that points. The student has to show me that they've done the work necessary in order to earn those points. So for example, if I'm looking at Standard 6, this is my class website that I use, and students can select in Standard 6, which I call a season because a student once said, what season are we on, because I had a little mission tied into it. So we call it Season 6, Episode 1, which would be Standard 6, Indicator 1. They can choose to work individually, so they have individual quests, and the individual quests are designed to take about a class and a half, because we have other things that are happening in the classroom, but they're working individually to show me some sort of a skill. Maybe it's analyzing a source, maybe it's building an argument, maybe they're taking information and creating some product with it, like a timeline or a visual vocabulary assignment. The collaborative quests are a little bit bigger, a little bit deeper, so they can earn above the minimum XP. In this one, they could create a children's book, or they could create a trading card deck, which would then have to link everything together. In Mission 7, we had these, and in the collaborative quests, we had building a board game. And this was from, I believe, Monica Garcia, who you should all follow on Twitter. And through this building a board game web assignment, you can see here that I started working on a star system. Now this is similar to what you'd see in Angry Birds, where you can defeat the level, you win the mission, but you can win a mission better than some other people sometimes. So if they completed the mission, if they demonstrated the fact that they knew the content and they creatively showed me the board game, that they could create a board game, they got the minimum XP, which would be 250, and that is great because that's the minimum that they would need in that category to eventually earn a 100. They could also earn more than that. So if they did a really fantastic job and they went above and beyond my expectations, they could get 5, 6, even 1,000 experience points just for this one assignment. Now, the reason that I do that is because sometimes students are really good at demonstrating their creativity through one of these projects. And they've shown me that they know the content, but I'm still required to give that test. So they might get a 60 on that test for Standard 6, which means they have lost 400 experience points that they can't then, we do retakes. but they might not do well on the retake either. But they can make up those lost points by doing really well on one of these other missions, or they could do an extra mission. That does sometimes concern people in game terms. We call that farming, where a player will know that a certain item is going to spawn up, or they might do sort of like basic menial tasks in order to create items which then they sell to others. I am concerned about that. The way that I sort of manage that is that during the unit they can do whatever they want during that unit in class. So let's say there's 5 different assignments in Standard 6. They need to do 1 minimum assignment in Standard 6 to earn the bunker mission points. They can do a second mission if they want and earn another 250. That might make up the difference for the points they lose on the test. They could, because that's going to show me a different skill that they've learned. They can go back in time and replay past missions, but they have to do that outside of class. They can't do that during class time. So once we've transitioned into a new unit, the focus of the unit in the class period is whatever that content is. They can go back and do previous stuff, and because I publish almost all this stuff ahead of time, they can go forward and work on things as well. But any class time is dedicated to whatever content we're working on there. That is the basics of how my XP grading works, and the students track all of that through their personal grade sheet, so they can see all the stuff that they've done, anything that they need to work on, anything that they're missing, and they can work on extra missions. It's kind of like replaying a level. My analogy is usually Angry Birds on this, right? So I might do really well on the first Angry Birds level and get 3 stars, but in the second level I might only get 1 star. The third level opens up, but I might go back and replay level 2 because I want to get that second and third star for that level. That is essentially how my XP grading works, and I try hard to focus on academic content mastery, skills mastery, and try to avoid behavioral stuff. I don't take a late penalty on my homework or on any assignment. Really, you can hand things in late in my classroom as long as it's before the semester is over and I have to turn my grades in. There are incentive structures to not turn things in late. For example, we transition to the new unit and you have to work on anything on your own time that you didn't submit during the say Standard 4 unit. We move on to Standard 5 and we work on Standard 5 stuff in class, so you'd have to finish that outside. I also have 2 systems. One is the Hunter's Heart system and now the Sentinel's Charges, which I will be posting on soon. The Hunter's Heart, you start off with 3 hearts, and every time you assign something after the submission date, you lose a heart. There's ways to prevent that. You submit on time. There's some cards that you can purchase with that silver system that would give you an extension on it. If you are a hunter, you lose a heart when you miss the deadline. The Sentinels, they earn a charge point, which powers up a superpower every time they turn something in on or before the deadline. So there's incentives for meeting deadlines, but you don't lose the experience points, because in my philosophy, if you've demonstrated that your ability with the content or the skill, you've demonstrated it regardless of if you turned it on Monday or Wednesday. So I want to encourage students to continue to work with that material even if the deadline is passed. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, please submit either in the comments here on the YouTube channel or on my blog post, or even tweet at me at Mr. Powley, and I will be happy to discuss further. And hopefully the audio works in this. So thanks, and this was fun.